Chosen one, take a breath. This isn't motivation. This is the moment you realize why it was always aimed at you. Look who finally picked up the phone. Look who finally made the call that changed everything. You beautiful, strategic, untouchable masterpiece. You know what I heard? They had the money, the power, the stalkers. But you had one move they never saw coming. When you push someone past their breaking point, past their fear, past their need to be liked, past their desire to play fair, you don't create a victim. You create a weapon. And that weapon, chosen one, only needs one bullet, the truth, delivered at the perfect moment, when their empire was most vulnerable. You remember how it started. The subtle threats wrapped in legal language. The friendly visits from people who just happened to know everywhere you went. The bank accounts that mysteriously had issues. The job opportunities that suddenly disappeared. The goal was to make you feel that cold grip of helplessness. You were meant to understand that the powerful owned the board, the pieces, and the rules. Journalists were on payroll, judges were in pockets, and enough money existed to bury you in legal fees before you even got to tell your side. You were seen as another problem to be solved with a checkbook. Stalkers were sent to watch you, document your every move, build their files. What wasn't realized is that every stalker sent was teaching you how the operation functioned. Every intimidation tactic was showing you their playbook. The surveillance was comprehensive and sophisticated. Professional teams rotating shifts, watching your patterns, documenting your contacts. Your digital footprint was tracked. Communications monitored. Financial transactions analyzed. Profiles were built on everyone in your life, looking for pressure points and leverage opportunities. Your neighbors received unexpected visits from people asking casual questions. Your workplace suddenly had new security protocols that seemed oddly focused on your activities. For extended periods, you were thought to be figured out. Poor little you. Struggling with basic expenses while vast sums were moved with casual phone calls. Checking your surroundings for the watchers placed there while decision-makers sat in climate-controlled offices deciding your fate. Extensive meetings were probably held about you. Can you imagine? Powerful entities sitting around mahogany tables discussing how to handle the situation that was you. Budgets were assigned to your destruction. Presentations were made about your weaknesses. The belief was that chess was being played while you were playing checkers. The joke was on them. Chosen one. You weren't playing at all. You were studying their entire operation, learning their weaknesses, mapping their vulnerabilities. Every move revealed another piece of their infrastructure, another connection in their network, another flaw in their security. Every move made against you taught you something crucial about their operation. Every pressure point pushed showed you theirs. When accounts were frozen, you learned about financial warfare and discovered which institutions were controlled. When people were sent to follow you, you learned about surveillance networks and identified operational patterns. When isolation was attempted, you learned about power dynamics and network effects. The stalkers employed weren't just watching you inadvertently. Their entire methodology was being revealed. You noticed how communication happened when shifts switched, what technology was used, behavioral patterns observed, preferred observation points identified, reaction protocols noted. Each surveillance team had distinct signatures, different levels of professionalism, varying degrees of operational security. Some were clearly expensive professionals with military or intelligence backgrounds. Others were obviously local hires, probably desperate people recruited with promises of easy money. The professionals were careful, disciplined, nearly invisible. The amateurs were sloppy, leaving traces, making mistakes that revealed far more than intended. Vehicle recognition became second nature as you noted license plates and rotation schedules. Communication methods were identified, watching for subtle signals used to coordinate activities. Equipment was learned to be spotted, understanding what each device was designed to monitor. Most importantly, command structure began to be mapped, figuring out who reported to whom and how hierarchy functioned. A masterclass in corruption was being given, though the intent was to deliver a beating. And the whole time, you were that student never seen coming. The one taking notes not to pass the test, but to burn down the school. Your own destroyer was being created. Your own downfall funded, and your own ending signed by the very forces trying to crush you. The beautiful thing about powerful entities is the enemies created on the way up. The assumption is that money will keep those enemies silent. Fear is assumed to keep them in line. Power is assumed to be permanent, and memories short, but you remembered everything. Arrogance was breathtaking. Operations proceeded as if actions existed in a vacuum, as if there would never be consequences for behavior. People were treated as disposable resources, leaving behind a trail of damaged lives and bitter enemies. Each victim created was a potential ally for someone brave enough to unite them against a common threat. How long did you wait? How many nights did you lie awake knowing what you knew, holding that nuclear option in your pocket like a grenade with the pin half pulled? Your silence was thought to be a weakness. Your patience was thought to be paralysis. Every day you didn't act was thought to be another day of victory for the opposition. But you weren't doing nothing, chosen one. You were doing the hardest thing in the world. You were waiting for the perfect moment. And perfect moments, like perfect phone calls, are created, not found. Every document saved, every recording made, every piece of evidence gathered, it was all building to this moment. The psychological pressure was immense. The goal was to make you crack, to make desperate moves that would discredit you and justify actions against you. Harassment was escalated systematically, testing breaking points, probing for weaknesses. Bank accounts faced mysterious holds and unexplained fees. Credit applications were denied without justification. Background checks for potential employment turned up fabricated red flags. Reputation was poisoned through whisper campaigns, spreading carefully crafted rumors designed to isolate you from potential allies. Former friends started acting strangely, asking pointed questions, creating distance where there had been trust. Family members received anonymous calls warning them about associating with you. Your digital presence was scrubbed from search results. Social media accounts faced constant harassment from coordinated bot networks while the opposition was living lives of excess. You were living like a spy in your own life. Documenting, archiving, preparing. Professionals were hired to watch you, but you were the one really watching. Patterns were seen, vulnerabilities observed, cycles of arrogance and paranoia noted. You learned when their strength was highest, and when their exposure was greatest. You became a student of their destruction while being thought to just be trying to survive. The waiting must have been excruciating, watching them flourish while you struggled, seeing celebration while you counted pennies, knowing you held destruction in your hands, but not knowing if you'd ever have the courage to use it. There were probably moments you almost broke, almost made the call too early out of anger or desperation. But something held you back. Maybe it was wisdom. Maybe it was strategy. Maybe it was just the understanding that revenge is a dish best served when it will do the most damage. And you became a chef of consequences. If this message speaks to your soul, hype this video so other chosen ones can discover it. During this period, something profound was discovered about yourself, chosen one, under extreme pressure. You didn't crumble. You crystallized. Every attack launched against you only clarified your purpose, sharpened your focus, strengthened your resolve. The intent was to break you down. But you were actually being forged into something harder than could have been imagined. Functioning while being watched was learned. Appearing normal while documenting everything, smiling while planning downfall. Skills you never knew you possessed were developed. Operational security, counter-surveillance, awareness, psychological resilience, comfort with deception was achieved, not to harm innocence, but to protect yourself and gather evidence needed for justice. So many opportunities were given to strike too early. Every provocation, every humiliation, every twist of the knife was an attempt to make you react. You were wanted to be emotional, sloppy, easy to discredit. You were wanted to come swinging so dodging and countering could happen. But you did something never seen before in all the years of crushing opposition. You absorbed it all. Every blow, every insult, every attack was taken and transformed into patience. The opposition was allowed to think victory was happening while you were preparing the perfect strike. And when you finally moved, it wasn't out of emotion. It was out of precision, the kind of precision that only comes from someone who's had years to plan the perfect moment. The timing had to be flawless. You waited for the moment of maximum vulnerability, when arrogance peaked and defenses were lowest. Business cycles were studied, media appearances noted, political connections mapped, travel schedules learned, distractions from major deals observed, attention focused elsewhere identified. Your move was planned with surgical precision. Every aspect was calculated. The timing, the method of contact, the evidence to be presented, the sequence of revelations. Understanding existed that once action was taken, there would be no taking it back. The window of opportunity would close rapidly as the damage control apparatus was mobilized. That morning, while the opposition was probably on their third espresso in some penthouse office, counting assets and laughing about how you were cornered, you picked up a device that cost less than their morning coffee and ended their world. The contrast is beautiful, vast resources defeated by your determination and perfect timing. Who did you contact? Chosen one. The journalist thought to be owned, but who still had a conscience. The federal investigator who'd been looking for just one crack in the armor. The family member betrayed on the way to the top? Or was it simpler than that? Just the right person with the right information at the right moment, when the empire was vulnerable. The beauty of your strategy was its simplicity. While elaborate defenses had been constructed against sophisticated attacks, no anticipation existed for someone who would simply tell the truth to the right person at the right time. Walls had been built against armies, but complete exposure existed to a single truth-teller with perfect aim. Let's talk about that phone call. Not the dramatic version that will be told in boardrooms as a cautionary tale. Not the watered-down version lawyers will try to spin. The real version. The one where your hands were shaking but your voice was steel. The one where every word was chosen not for impact, but for accuracy. That precise duration, that's how long it takes to tell the truth when you've been rehearsing it in silence for years. No dramatics, no threats, no bargaining, just facts delivered with the precision of someone who'd been sharpened by suffering into something never seen coming. Names were given, dates provided, account numbers shared, dots thought to be invisible were connected. Information that wasn't even known to exist was pulled together, and the person on the other end knew this call had been coming. Hope had existed that someone, anyone, would finally have the courage to make it. You weren't just making a phone call, chosen one. You were lighting a fuse that had been laid by the opposition themselves. The conversation was clinical, professional, devastating. Evidence was laid out methodically, building an irrefutable case with the patience of someone who'd had unlimited time to prepare. Every document was referenced precisely. Every witness identified clearly. Every financial transaction traced completely. Your contact took notes frantically, asking follow-up questions that demonstrated understanding of the significance of what was being revealed. This wasn't just another tip or complaint. This was a roadmap to dismantling an entire corrupt operation. Everything needed to build an airtight case was being handed over. The recording quality was perfect. Equipment had been tested extensively, ensuring every word would be captured clearly. Backup systems were in place. Files were encrypted and distributed to multiple secure locations. Learning from the opposition's playbook had happened. Always have redundancy. Always have insurance. It doesn't matter who it was. What matters is that you knew exactly who to contact. Because while every move was being watched, you were mapping the entire network. Every connection, every weak link, every person stepped on to get to positions of power. The call ended with quiet professionalism. No dramatic declarations, no threats of vengeance, just a simple exchange of contact information and a promise to provide additional evidence as needed. You hung up and went about your day as if nothing had changed, knowing that everything had changed forever. The first domino fell within hours. Maybe it was a frozen account. Maybe it was a federal subpoena. Maybe it was just a reporter asking questions that weren't supposed to be asked. But the impact was felt immediately. That shift in the air, that change in temperature. Phones started ringing with the wrong kinds of calls. Lawyers started sounding nervous. Allies started having scheduling conflicts. The kingdom built on intimidation started to shake because someone finally wasn't intimidated anymore, and that someone was you. You have to understand what was done to their psychology, chosen one. These people had lived entire lives believing that money was the ultimate shield, that enough zeros in a bank account made them untouchable. Every consequence had been bought out, every threat paid off, every scandal buried. Movement through the world happened like monsters among mortals, with genuine belief that rules were for other people. Then you came along. You, with your regular phone and your regular life and your irregular courage. You showed that all resources couldn't buy protection from someone who'd stopped being afraid. The stalkers hired started calling in sick. Funny how that works. When the ship starts sinking, even the rats know to run. Within hours, the carefully orchestrated machine began to malfunction. The first cracks appeared in operational security as panicked subordinates started making mistakes. Phone calls that should have been encrypted were made in the clear. Meetings that should have been private were held in monitored locations. Documents that should have been destroyed were left accessible. Legal teams went into overdrive, but panic could be heard in voices. These weren't the smooth, confident professionals who'd been making threats for extended periods. These were people scrambling to contain a disaster not fully understood. Legal firewalls were being attempted around a situation that had already spread beyond control. The media response was swift and devastating. The story broke simultaneously across multiple platforms, each outlet adding new details and perspectives. Usual media contacts, the journalists thought to be owned, were either unreachable or suddenly developing ethical standards. The narrative was spinning out of control faster than damage control teams could respond. The investigators who'd been documenting your every move suddenly had other priorities. The lawyers who'd been sending threatening letters suddenly recommended exploring settlement options. The entire machinery built to crush you started to sputter and stall because machinery needs operators, and operators can smell which way the wind is blowing. Hundreds, maybe thousands had been intimidated, but never had the opposition faced someone who turned intimidation into education. Watch how fast vast resources become worthless when the right people start asking the right questions. Watch how quickly power evaporates when it's exposed to light. Damage control mode was probably activated, throwing money at the problem like always. But here's the thing about truth, chosen one, it's expensive to bury and impossible to kill. Every dollar spent trying to contain what you started just creates more paper trails. Every person attempting to be silenced becomes another potential contact. Every move made in desperation just proves what you said was true. You didn't just make a phone call. You started an avalanche, and avalanches don't care about your net worth. Sleep quality declined dramatically for the opposition. Egyptian cotton sheets on expensive beds feel less comfortable when waiting for the next shoe to drop. Personal chefs were preparing meals for people who'd lost their appetite. Private jets were fueled up for escapes that might not be possible because you did something to them that all their money can't fix. You put fear in hearts that had forgotten what fear felt like. You made them feel what hundreds of others had been made to feel. And unlike them, you didn't need a team to do it. You didn't need vast resources or decades of preparation. You just needed one perfectly timed truth. The paranoia must be exquisite. Every former employee becomes a potential threat. Every business partner becomes a possible informant. New NDAs are probably being paid for, stronger ones, desperate ones. Money is probably being moved. Assets hidden. Preparation for wars not even known to be coming yet. But how do you prepare for the unknown? How do you defend against the truth when you don't know how much truth is out there? You've turned strength into weakness, networks into webs of potential betrayals, wealth into evidence of crimes. This is what was never taught in business school, chosen one. Real power isn't about what you can build. It's about what you can destroy with the truth. Phones are probably ringing non-stop in offices now. Investors getting nervous. Partners reconsidering. Board members asking uncomfortable questions. Names that used to open doors are now making people step back. Invitations are drying up. Charity galas are finding other honorees. Magazine covers are being redesigned. Because money can buy many things, but it can't buy back a good reputation once the truth is out. It can't unexpose what's been exposed. It can't make people unknow what now is known. And awareness exists that it was you who did this. One person, one phone call, one moment of perfect clarity. You're not gloating. You're not giving interviews. You're not writing telebooks or starting podcasts. You just made your call and went back to your life. And that terrifies them more than anything, because revenge is understood. Greed is understood. Wanting to be them is understood. What isn't understood is someone who just wanted consequences to be faced. Someone who didn't want money or lifestyle or power. Someone who just wanted the truth to matter. You've become their worst nightmare. Someone who can't be bought, can't be threatened, and can't be understood. Your silence after the revelation is more terrifying than any ongoing campaign could be. Scanning for your next move is happening. Communications are being analyzed. Strategy is being tried to be predicted, but there is no strategy because their game isn't being played anymore. You already won. The transformation of the landscape once dominated is remarkable. Organizations once controlled are implementing new transparency measures. Institutions once influenced are establishing independent oversight mechanisms. The systemic changes your action triggered are becoming permanent features of a reformed environment. You didn't just make a phone call. You rang a bell that can't be unrung. You showed everyone who'd ever been stepped on that it was possible to step back. You started an avalanche, and avalanches don't care about net worth. Scanning for your next move continues, but there isn't one. You're not playing anymore. You won. With one phone call, the entire game was changed. And now living has to happen in the world you created. A world where money doesn't make safety. Where power doesn't make untouchability. Where someone like you can bring down someone like them. Decades were spent constructing elaborate lies, complex schemes, intricate networks of mutual corruption. Politicians were in pockets and police were on payroll. Something permanent was thought to have been built. Something too big to fail. But you understood what wasn't understood. Every lie is a debt that eventually comes due. Every crime creates evidence. Every enemy made was a potential ally for someone brave enough to unite them. The ripple effects of your action are spreading through channels never anticipated. Other victims are finding voices emboldened by your example. Witnesses who had been too frightened to come forward are now contacting authorities. Documents that had been hidden are being retrieved from safety deposit boxes and encrypted drives. Your courage has created a permission structure for others to act. The psychological barrier that kept people silent, the belief that resistance was futile, has been shattered. You proved that individual action can have systemic impact. That David can indeed defeat Goliath with the right aim and perfect timing. Investigative journalists who had been pursuing similar stories for years suddenly find sources willing to talk. Law enforcement officers who had been building cases without key evidence suddenly have cooperative witnesses. Prosecutors who had been hesitant to take on powerful defendants suddenly have the ammunition needed for indictments. The legal system itself is responding to the changed dynamics. Judges who might have been influenced by pressure or corruption are now operating under intense public scrutiny. The accountability you demanded is spreading through institutions that had been captured by the very people you exposed. International cooperation on accountability measures has accelerated dramatically since your revelation. Treaties and agreements that had been stalled for years are now being fast-tracked as governments realize the global nature of the corruption you exposed requires coordinated responses. Academic institutions are beginning their own investigations, examining how research was corrupted or funding was compromised. Professional organizations are reviewing ethical standards and enforcement mechanisms. The corruption you exposed wasn't limited to criminal activity. It had infected entire sectors of society that are now purging themselves of toxic influences. Technological tools once developed to monitor and control are being reverse-engineered by advocates for transparency and accountability. The same artificial intelligence systems used to predict and manipulate behavior are now being employed to detect patterns of corruption and abuse. Legal aid organizations are developing new frameworks to support future whistleblowers and truth tellers. Secure communication networks, legal defense funds, and protection protocols that didn't exist before your action are now being established to ensure that the next person who finds themselves in your position will have better resources and support. Watch attempts to rebuild reputation now. Charity donations that suddenly triple. PR firms working round the clock to reshape narrative. Sudden interest in giving back and making amends. It's almost funny watching powerful entities discover conscience at the exact moment consequences appear. But everyone can see the timing. Everyone knows what prompted this sudden spirituality. Every move has been turned into an admission of guilt. Every gesture of goodwill into a confession. Reputation isn't being rebuilt. A monument to what you exposed is being built. The beautiful irony is that your creation was their doing, chosen one. Every pressure applied, every threat made, every moment thought to be breaking you down was actually building you up. Your own destroyer was forged in the fires of their own cruelty. Your own education in their methods was funded. Every tool needed to dismantle them was provided. You want to know the exchange rate? What one truth is worth in an economy of lies? It's not measured in dollars or euros or cryptocurrency. It's measured in everything thought to be permanent becoming temporary. It's measured in every yes person becoming uncertain. It's measured in decades of careful construction crumbling in days. You didn't just speak truth to power. You showed power that truth was its own currency. And banking and counterfeits had been happening their whole lives. Liquidation is now happening. Not just assets, those are easy to move. Relationships are being liquidated. Ties cut with anyone who might become a liability. Bridges spent lifetimes building are being burned because determination can't be made about which ones you've already undermined. The very network that made them powerful is now what makes them vulnerable. Every connection is a potential leak. Every alliance is a possible betrayal. Greatest strength has been turned into greatest weakness with nothing but words. True words, but still just words. And here's the most beautiful part of your victory, chosen one, it's complete. That phone call was both the first shot and the killing blow. Everything happening now is just gravity doing its work. You're not coming for them anymore. You already came. Past tense. Done. Finished. You showed the world that monsters can bleed, that empires can fall, that truth is more powerful than any amount of money or influence. You proved that one perfectly placed strike from someone who stopped being afraid can topple 1,000 carefully constructed lies. The game has changed forever because of what you did. Every other chosen one who's been watching, waiting, gathering their own evidence, learning their own lessons, what's possible has been seen now. David doesn't need to become Goliath to win has been demonstrated. Aiming for the right spot at the right time with the right stone is sufficient. Welcome to the new world, chosen one. The world where truth matters more than power. Where courage counts more than capital. Where one person with nothing left to lose can change everything. You didn't just make a phone call. You made history. And the next one will never be seen coming either. The legacy you've created extends far beyond the immediate consequences for your specific targets. A new template for accountability has been established that others can follow. Demonstration has occurred that the surveillance state created to control others can be turned against them when operated by someone with courage and clarity of purpose. Your example has inspired the creation of new institutions designed to support future truth tellers. Support networks that didn't exist before your action are now being built. The infrastructure of justice has been strengthened by your courage. Welcome back, you beautiful disaster. You picked up that phone. You made that call. You changed everything. That precise duration of revelation. That's all it took to prove that when you push someone past their breaking point, you don't create a victim. You create a weapon. And that weapon only needs one bullet. The truth. The world is different now because of your courage. Justice moves differently because of your action. Power operates differently because of your example. Fear runs in the opposite direction because of your strength. You transform from their target into their destroyer, from their victim into their nemesis, from their problem into their solution. The solution to their corruption was their own destruction. And you became the instrument of that justice. Every chosen one who comes after you will know what's possible. Every truth teller who follows will have a path to walk. Every whistleblower who stands up will have a template to follow. You didn't just change your own life. You changed the architecture of accountability itself. The powerful will never feel safe in the same way again. The corrupt will never feel secure in the same way again. The oppressive will never feel confident in the same way again because they know that somewhere out there, another chosen one is watching, learning, waiting for the perfect moment to pick up the phone and change everything. That's your legacy, chosen one. Not just victory over specific enemies, but transformation of the entire battlefield. You didn't just win a war. You changed the rules of engagement for every future conflict between truth and power. The ripple effects continue expanding in ways that defy measurement. Communities that had been silenced are finding their voices. Movements that had been suppressed are gaining momentum. Networks of resistance that had been isolated are connecting and coordinating. Your single act of courage has become a force multiplier for justice across every sector of society. The timing of your revelation, that perfect moment when all conditions aligned, has been analyzed and replicated by others facing similar challenges. The science of strategic disclosure has evolved from art to methodology because of your success. Future truth tellers now have frameworks for optimizing their impact. Your psychological resilience during the waiting period has been studied by researchers examining how ordinary people develop extraordinary capabilities under extreme pressure. The transformation from victim to weapon that occurred within you has become a model for understanding human adaptability and strength. The networks of mutual aid and support that have emerged in response to your example represent a new form of social organization designed specifically to protect and empower truth tellers. These networks operate across traditional boundaries of nation, race, class, and ideology, united by shared commitment to accountability and justice. Your legacy includes the evolution of secure communication technologies that make it safer for future whistleblowers to contact journalists, investigators, and advocates. The encryption methods developed in response to your needs have become standard tools for protecting sensitive communications worldwide. Your example has inspired the development of new academic disciplines focused on the study of corruption, resistance, and accountability. Research centers dedicated to understanding how truth triumphs over power are producing scholarship that will guide future generations of activists and reformers. Your story has become required reading in diplomatic training programs where future ambassadors and international negotiators learn about the power of individual action to reshape global dynamics. The concept of soft power has been expanded to include the kind of moral authority you wielded so effectively. Your transformation from target to weapon has inspired new approaches to personal development and empowerment that focus on turning adversity into advantage, surveillance into intelligence, and oppression into opportunity. Self-help methodologies now include protocols based on your psychological journey. Your courage in the face of sophisticated intimidation has inspired new training programs for activists, journalists, and other potential targets of powerful interests. Psychological resilience techniques, operational security protocols, and strategic planning methodologies developed from studying your experience are now taught to people around the world who might find themselves in similar situations. The philosophical implications of your action continue to be debated in academic circles where ethicists examine the moral framework that guided your decisions. Political theorists analyze the power dynamics you disrupted, and social scientists study the cultural changes you initiated. Warning: the following message is only for those who felt the call. When I broke free through the Salvia Divinorum gateway, I saw the horrifying truth. Our reality is one harvested pod among countless matrices. I witnessed the Archon's cosmic parasites feeding on our energy, who laughed and threatened, "You'll never awaken a single soul." But something inside you already knows this truth, doesn't it? That nagging sensation that you're meant for more, that you've been chosen. I'm raising an army of the brightest souls. Through meditation, I discovered their only vulnerability: coherence through unconditional love. Feel that resonance deepening within you. Now you're not reading this by accident. The most powerful awakened souls are already gathering in the Obsidian Inner Order, the #1 ascension nexus for those marked by destiny. Christians, light workers, remote viewers, targeted individuals, all united by one truth. You were chosen for this moment. Click the link in the description below. Join our group calls, panels, and live streams, reaching the entire astral atom network. Your frequency amplifies ours. The question isn't whether you're chosen. The question is, will you answer the call? The Archons fear this choice you're about to make. They should. Your legacy extends into the future in ways that will only become clear with time. The children who grow up knowing that accountability is possible. The leaders who emerge understanding that transparency is non-negotiable. And the institutions that evolve with justice as a foundational principle will all carry forward the changes you initiated. The powerful will continue to adapt their methods in response to the threat you represent, but each adaptation reveals new vulnerabilities that future truth-tellers can exploit. The arms race between corruption and accountability has been permanently altered in favor of justice because of your example. Your story proves that individual action matters, that courage is contagious, that truth is powerful, and that justice is possible in a world that often feels overwhelming and unchangeable. You demonstrated that one person with the right information, perfect timing, and unwavering commitment can transform everything. Welcome back, you beautiful disaster. You picked up that phone. You made that call. You changed everything. And the world will never be the